Yo, and we are live. Yo, this is Set with Set and Comedian, man. I'm back with another one for you guys, man. Today, we're about to get into Operation Galileo, and this one is a doozy because pretty much the CIA and the mobs, yes, the mobsters, teamed up. Let's get into it.
After World War II, Europe was divided. The Western Allies controlled West Germany, while the Soviets held the East. As former allies became enemies, the Cold War began. The Soviet Union suffered massive losses, liberating countries as it marched to Berlin. And those liberated countries, they weren't giving them back. Poland, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, they became Soviet satellite states, and the Soviets wanted more. How much more, nobody knew. Europe was in ruins, but the Russian army was still strong. If they pushed west, they would be hard to stop. The Allies needed a plan to contain the Soviets, so they turned to Allen Dulles of the CIA, America's new intelligence agency. During the war, the Office of Strategic Services, or the OSS, coordinated espionage and covert operations. Allen Dulles was the OSS station chief in Switzerland. He watched the Soviet Union closely, and he didn't trust them. They may be temporary allies, but they were communists. Dulles believed in using every tool available.
And be real, yeah, communism was the enemy. It still is the enemy of today and of democracy.
To fight communism. A radical plan to stop Soviet expansion landed on his desk. It focused on training small groups of citizen soldiers in sabotage, supply raids, propaganda, and guerrilla warfare. These stay-behind soldiers would resist Soviet influence even if their governments fell. The White House loved the idea. The only question was, who would lead this secret army? Allen Dulles had the answer. Nazis.
Oh, shit! Oh, great! What could possibly go wrong?
Huh? Well, I don't know. We use Nazis for science. Well, we took Nazis and made them scientists, and I think they now work at NASA. Back in the day, they used to work at NASA and all that. So, you know, this ain't really too far off from what we usually do.
Operation Paperclip was a covert U.S. intelligence program that brought Nazi scientists, engineers, and technicians to America after World War II. Many of these scientists had been implicated in war crimes and human rights abuses, but the U.S. looked the other way. Dr. Kurt Blome was one of the Nazis' leading experts in biowarfare. He conducted horrible experiments on concentration camp inmates. After the war, Blome was arrested and would have been hanged, but America intervened and he went to work for the CIA.
Yeah, as a Nazi, he used chemicals on people against their will. What did he do for the CIA?
Well, he worked for the MK Ultra program.
Using chemicals on people against their will.
Yep.
Yo.
At least he was consistent.
No, at least they knew what he was good at.
Dr. Erich Straub was a top Nazi bioweapons designer. After the war, he worked for the U.S. Army and helped launch the Germ Warfare Lab on Plum Island in New York. And what happened there was bad.
How is the Plum Island link down in the place with all this stuff?
Arthur Rudolph, Walter Dornberger, and Werner von Braun developed the V-2 rocket that killed thousands of people in London. V-2 rockets were built using forced labor from concentration camps. They later worked for NASA and built the rockets that went to the moon.
Whoa, let me fix that for you. They later worked for NASA and built rockets that never went to the moon. Fake moon landing link down here too, by the way.
No, my personal belief about the moon landing is I believe they went to the moon, but I don't believe that like what they showed us is real yet. Well, what they showed us, nah. They went to the moon, got spooked out, but they had to show us something.
About 1,600 Nazi scientists were recruited by the United States. A lot of them were connected to war crimes and unethical experiments, but their backgrounds were sanitized to avoid public backlash.
Well,
yes, Nazis were evil, but to the Americans, they were a necessary evil used to prevent Soviet expansion.
he's like, y'all Nazis evil, but god damn it, y'all smart. Yep, y'all smart. Y'all got some good ideas.
General
Wow,
Reinhard Gehlen was Hitler's intelligence chief for the Eastern Front. He had a reputation for abusing Soviet POWs to extract information.
Wow.
After the war, the Soviets wanted him charged with war crimes. Gehlen offered the United States all of his Soviet intelligence files and in exchange, he wanted protection and a role in future operations. The U.S. agreed. Under Operation Paperclip, Gellin became an American asset. All war crimes were forgiven. Gellin worked with the CIA to stop Soviet aggression. The CIA was a civilian organization. It wasn't armed or militarized. It only gathered intelligence. Gellin needed something with more teeth. He built a new organization focused on the Soviet Union. It was more than just for intelligence gathering. They would be a paramilitary organization trained in guerrilla warfare and sabotage. Gellin's first recruits were Hitler Youth and former Nazi soldiers. He called them werewolves. They were ordinary citizens by day and communist killers by night. Alan Dulles loved it. Gellin's werewolves would be the secret army the CIA didn't have. Resources poured in from the US and the UK, and Gellin set up a network of secret supply caches all over Germany.
So they had a whole secret army going on at their own that they can throw out their own will. Wow, hey, that's crazy. All behind Kennedy's back.
The new German government didn't know these secret stay-behind armies existed until a former Nazi officer exposed the operation. The Americans were caught funding a secret Nazi army led by the brutal General Reinhard Gellin. This was horrifying news. The new German government ordered a full investigation. But that never happened.
Because imagine going into war, we lost hell of soldiers just to take out the Nazis, just to find out that we're low-key using them ourselves. It's like, it's crazy, but it's exactly what we did.
The CIA had the investigation closed and covered up. It didn't matter that the operation was illegal. The werewolves were necessary. The Soviet Union was strong and getting stronger. Then a new threat emerged. In 1947, communists were winning local elections all over Italy. National elections were coming up. Italy was becoming the first communist country in Western Europe. This was unacceptable. It would undermine America's position in Europe and increase Soviet influence. The CIA wanted Gellin's guerrilla warfare plan expanded and brought to Italy. They would recruit hundreds of paramilitary soldiers starting in Rome. This new army would be called Operation Gladio, named for the gladius, the sword used by Roman soldiers. Recruits would be trained by US and British special forces and given all the tools and tactics needed to fight communism in Italy. The CIA just needed one last thing to get Gladio running. A lot of cocaine.
Oh, I'm done. Why I gotta be cocaine, bro? Not only using Nazis, but now it's Nazis and cocaine. Oh yeah, this gotta be crazy. You involve Nazis and cocaine in anything.
The CIA would use Operation Gladio to create fear and instability in Italy. They would spread propaganda, infiltrate political events, bribe police, politicians, and disrupt demonstrations. They had to convince citizens that the Italian Communist Party was a dangerous threat. A secret agreement was made with Italian military intelligence. If Gladio needed to escalate, they would commit acts of violence and pin the blame on Italian communists.
Well,
the 1948 national election was approaching. Gladio had to act fast. This operation needed planning and a lot of money. Small problem. Congress controlled the money and wasn't aware of Operation Gladio. Asking for funding would reveal its existence, defeating its purpose. The money had to come from somewhere else, and it had to be kept secret. CIA officer Colonel Paul Helliwell had a solution. He worked with the Chinese National Army fighting Mao Zedong's communists. Chiang Kai-shek funded the Chinese National Army by selling opium. Helliwell smuggled opium into China using civil air transport, an airline owned by Chinese nationalists. That airline was sold to the Airedale Corporation, a quiet little American company running out of a fake address in Delaware.
Oh, so the CIA bought the planes?
They did.
Nah.
The planes joined the CIA's secret fleet, the infamous Air America, that ran drugs to war zones for decades.
Yo.
Alan Dulles loved the idea of funding Gladio with untraceable drug money. But Gladio needed...
I ain't gonna lie, it does sound a bit player. Like, come on, bro. Imagine you bragging to your friends, look, I made this secret army and I'm funding it through drug money, Nazis, and cocaine, dog. Like, it's shit kind of raw. I ain't gonna lie, it's shit kind of cool.
A lot of money. They'd have to flood American cities with drugs. Getting the product wasn't the problem. The CIA had all the cocaine and heroin it needed. The problem was distribution. They'd need a small army of drug dealers to cover the entire country. Luckily, a network was already in place. It was organized, had logistics, had security, and they already had plenty of customers. The CIA found its perfect partner in crime.
You what?
The mafia. The relationship between the mafia and the CIA began a long time ago. During World War II, German submarines were threatening the American coastline. The military couldn't monitor every dock and waterfront, so it got help from the one organization that could: the mafia. U.S. intelligence cut a deal with mob boss Charles Lucky Luciano, who was in prison. In exchange for his cooperation, Lucky received a reduced sentence and other perks. What?
He broke Omerta!
He did. Omerta is the mafia code of silence.
And I believe he's one of the few that came out and, like, Loki died on my boss, I believe. Huh.
You don't talk to authorities.
Informatore punti. Snitches get stitches.
I know what it means.
Che palle this guy, faccia di culo affannabile.
You know, it's crazy. One crazy fact about all the mob bosses. Out of all the mob bosses, only one died a mob boss. Like, just died of old age. Like, dude came in young and just died out as a mob boss. Like, there's only one.
Oh, hey, che si dice che fa? Why are you so upset?
Well, I used to run with a crew in Jersey. I don't like a rat.
You were in organized crime.
Yeah, we prefer the term family business, thank you very much. But yeah, I was with the Pesce family.
Whoa.
It's a story for another time. Maybe our next sponsor ad, perhaps.
Good idea. So when the CIA needed to move heroin, they knew who to call. Lucky Luciano and his mafia syndicate.
Affannabile.
At the time, the mafia avoided drugs. Well, they used heroin to keep prostitutes in line, but they didn't sell drugs. It was considered dishonorable. But when the CIA came calling, Lucky Luciano made an exception. The money was just too big.
They made him an offer he couldn't refuse.
Right. Besides, the mafia didn't want communists in power either.
Commies are bad for family business.
They are. Organized crime would become a target in a communist state. The mafia and the CIA liked things the way they were. So business fronts were set up in Sicily and Italy. Heroin was smuggled into the U.S., hidden in everyday items like sardine cans, wheels of cheese, and barrels of olive oil. Jimmy Hoffa and the Teamsters moved the drugs around the country. The operation instantly generated a ton of cash.
A lot of people chasing that dragon.
Yep. Heroin was good business. Operation Gladio now had its funding. But there's still a problem. Cash couldn't be paid directly to the CIA or the mafia. It had to be laundered through a legitimate financial institution. But walking into a bank with millions in cash sets off a red flag or two. They needed a bank that could handle cash without scrutiny from U.S. Treasury agents, Italian bank examiners, or the international monitors. Only one bank on the planet could do this: the Vatican.
Hold on. You got Nazis, drugs, you're a little bit tied in with the Chinese, and now you're tied in with the Vatican? Oh shit! What? Well, damn. Like, who wasn't involved in this operation at this point? Like, if you following him...
The Institute for Works of Religion, or Vatican Bank, was founded in 1942 to safeguard property for religious work or for charity. It only accepts deposits from top church officials. 5 cardinals oversee transactions and report to the Pope. And that's all we know. It's the most secret bank in the world. Yep. Exactly what the CIA needed.
Yeah, you know what else the CIA needed that bank for?
I'd rather just keep going.
2 words. Alien bodies.
The Vatican Bank is hiding alien bodies.
Yep, they grab them, bag them, tag them, and store them in the basement archives.
You know, there is something suspicious about the Vatican's secret archives.
Now you're starting to see.
The Vatican Secret Archive, bro. You got to be like over 70 and an astounding scholar, and you only get to be in there for a certain amount of time. By the time you're ready, by the time you can enter the Vatican's archives, you're damn near like an old man at the end of his life.
Come, swim with me, human. Swim with...
And for every visit, you got to be approved. And it's a long process. So they don't want you to find out what's in there.
me and open thine eyes, that thou mayest behold the world in its true form.
The Vatican Bank isn't subject to international law. It doesn't
Really?
report to any agency or government, only to the Pope. It was perfect for laundering drug money. And of course, the church would...
Shit, damn, maybe I need to make my own religion, man. So maybe I can get an unmarked bank. Like, I don't know. Does that would have come with the religion? Is that the religion banking package? Like, yeah, here's your unmarked bank that don't get, like, checked by nobody. So you can damn near do whatever you want with it, and we're never going to call you on it. Yeah, we call this the religion banking package. It's like, shit, I want it. I want it.
would get a cut.
Yeah, the family business, everybody wants their peak.
The Vatican was familiar with black money from the United States. The church helped the OSS create rat lines to move the important Nazis out of Europe. Plus, the church was anti-communist. Communism threatened the power of the United States, threatened the power of the mafia, and threatened the power of the church. So this unlikely partnership was formed, and the CIA started sending millions of dollars in cash to the Vatican. Operation Gladio launched in 1948, just in time for Italy's national election. The CIA, with help from the church, used psychological warfare to create fear of a communist takeover. Communism would bring violence, economic collapse, and the loss of religious freedoms. It worked. The Communist Party was defeated. The CIA was thrilled. They were able to change the outcome of a sovereign country's democratic election, and they didn't have to use the secret Gladio army. But what good is an army if you don't use it? So the CIA sent word to the Gladio soldiers, prepare for war. It would take a few years to organize, but Gladio was finally ready to enter its second phase: terrorism. Italian politics stabilized briefly, but the Cold War intensified, and Italy was on the front line. The Italian Communist Party, though defeated, remained a force. Violence was coming. On December 12, 1969, a bomb in Milan's National Agrarian Bank killed 17 and injured 88. Anarchists were blamed. In 1972, the Red Brigades, a communist group, rigged a car bomb in Paetano. It killed 3 police officers. Italy had entered the years of lead. Far left and far right groups committed acts of violence. Bombings, assassinations, and kidnappings plagued the entire country. Something had to be done. Prime Minister Giulio Andreotti proposed a new, more stable government, but it was up to Parliament to decide. So a vote was set for March 16, 1978. Meanwhile, Aldo Moro, a 5-term prime minister, supported the historic compromise. This plan would give the Italian Communist Party a larger role in the government. Now, Moro wasn't a communist, but the Communist Party had a lot of public support. He feared excluding the party would lead to more violence. So Moro would present his historic compromise plan to Parliament just before the vote.
Oh, the CIA wouldn't like that.
Well, it didn't matter. Moro never made it to Parliament. The Red Brigades kidnapped him that morning and murdered him weeks later. Moro's death killed the historic compromise. Andreotti's new government proceeded without the Communist Party.
I don't believe in coincidence.
Well, they got him up out the way real quick. Hey, man, they said, oh, you about to do what? All right, bet. You won't even make it to the meeting, bro.
Well, neither did journalist Mino Piccarelli. He published an article with a really provocative theory about what really happened to Aldo Moro. Piccarelli had discovered Prime Minister Andreotti's connections to the Sicilian Mafia, and he openly wondered if Andreotti ordered or was complicit in Moro's death. Piccarelli thought Italian intelligence might have aided the Red Brigades. He implied Operation Gladio members and foreign intelligence agencies like the CIA could be involved. Now, Piccarelli didn't have hard evidence, but he believed there was a conspiracy between Andreotti, the Mafia, and CIA. He knew if he kept digging, he'd find proof.
Ah, boy, this is the kind of thing that'll get you whacked. What happened?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, whoa. If I was doing an investigation like that, I'm seeing a little bit too many things connect. There is going to time to put my hand off it and be like, yeah, I'm good. I already see what this might get.
Piccarelli was found dead in his car on March 20th, 1979, shot 4 times.
And there it is.
Yep. He started connecting the dots a little too well.
Through the 1970s and 80s, the years of lead continued in Italy. More bombings and assassinations. The bodies were piling up. In 1984, Judge Felice Casson, a young, ambitious magistrate, investigated these attacks and saw a disturbing pattern. Military explosives like C4 were often used. Communist groups were usually blamed, but few arrests were made. His breakthrough came when Vincenzo Vinciguerra confessed to the Pettiato bombing. He said his group was armed and trained by Italian military intelligence. That's where they got the C4. Their orders were to cause disruption and violence and frame communists. This was state-sponsored terrorism. Then things got worse. Casson got a call from the local police. They had confiscated a briefcase from a local politician. It contained documents describing a plan to take over the Italian government. Casson couldn't believe it. The officer said, "There's more." The suitcase had a false bottom with more hidden documents. Casson asked what they found. The officer sounded nervous and said, "Sir, we can't tell you over the phone."
Yo.
Casson went to the police station to read the documents and was speechless. The documents confirmed hundreds of innocent people were killed in bombings by groups working for Italian military intelligence. Casson followed the lead. He gained access to Italy's military intelligence archives. That's when he learned these attacks were connected to Operation Gladio, launched by the CIA. Casson now had evidence that a secret unit in military intelligence was conducting guerrilla operations against its own people. Even more shocking, it wasn't just Italy. Operation Gladio was conceived in Germany by former Nazis, expanded in Italy, and then spread across NATO. Casson uncovered attacks all over Europe. Germany, France, a few in Belgium, all were false flag operations where civilians were killed intentionally and communists were blamed. Casson then...
Yo, so he pretty much just went around taking out innocent people just to blame it on communism. Just to blame it on communists. That was the whole operation, yes. Just make communists look as bad as possible by taking out innocent people. Hey, yo, and then creating little paramilitary groups in all these countries, and then what? Commit these atrocities and blame it on the communists? Like, damn, if the communists is that bad, why not just let them create their own image on their own? Like, I don't know. Let them show us. You don't gotta do nothing.
And realized Gladio was far bigger than he thought. He felt his life was in danger.
From July until October of 1990, I was the only one who knew about Operation Gladio who was not already part of the conspiracy.
Prime Minister Andreotti initially denied knowing anything about Gladio, but in 1990, under political pressure, he confirmed Operation Gladio was real and had operations throughout Europe. Now, most countries denied involvement at first, but there was too much evidence. Finally, NATO said that these stay-behind armies were real, but only for defense. The US and UK continued to maintain a no-comment policy on Gladio.
I bet.
The truth coming out put Prime Minister
If you started it, I'm pretty sure you wouldn't want to be the ones to be exposed for that.
Andreotti under tremendous scrutiny. Eventually, he was arrested and charged with being complicit in the murders of Pecorelli and Moro. After multiple trials and appeals, he was acquitted for lack of evidence and cleared of all charges.
Oh, you had friends in high places, huh?
He did. He was important to the cause.
Man.
Andreotti oversaw Operation Gladio in Italy. About 30 acts of violence were directly linked to Gladio, with 150 more suspected. Around 600 innocent people died from Gladio bombs, with twice as many injured. If all suspected attacks are proven to be Gladio-related, the death toll is in the thousands. No one has answered for these crimes. Over the years, as more innocent bodies piled up, the CIA said it needed more money and power. Communism was taking root all over the world, so they got more money and power. The agency became militarized. It now had its own secret army that it could deploy anywhere there was a Soviet threat. Small problem. It was all a lie.
Huh? Wait, what was they doing?
From the 1950s through the 1980s, the USSR was an existential threat to America. The CIA was constantly warning us of Soviet strength, fueling massive military spending. But was the threat real? In the 1960s, Americans were terrified of the Soviets.
Let us face, without panic, the reality of our times. The fact that atom bombs may someday be dropped on our cities.
Sputnik launched. Yuri Gagarin went to space. Americans panicked. The Soviets seemed unstoppable. NASA had to be created. More military spending was needed. But was it? Yep. The CIA said yes. The Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962 almost started a nuclear war.
It shall be the policy of this nation to regard any nuclear missile launched from Cuba against any nation in the Western Hemisphere as an attack by the Soviet Union on the United States, requiring a full retaliatory response upon the Soviet Union.
Clearly, war with the Soviet Union was coming. More military spending was needed. But was it? The CIA said yes. I grew up in the 1980s when military budgets exploded. Generation Xers like me believed that war was going to break out at any second.
You can do it in the army.
We were in an arms race that we couldn't afford to lose. It was a race for survival. But was it? The CIA's job is to gather intelligence so the US government can make informed decisions. Somehow these decisions always led to more military funding and more power for intelligence agencies. But
yeah,
the CIA...
that is a bit weird. Like, come on, couldn't they ever just say, you know, it's all good? It's like, so every time I go out there, the situation comes back, it's all bad. I'd have to be a little, spectacle at a certain point. Like, you know, now I gotta pull up. Because not every time y'all come back from somewhere, it's like, oh, it was bad. We need more money. We need more money. It's like, bro, can't it ever be cool?
CIA knows best. Or does it? While the Soviets puffed out their chests in Cuba, their people back home were starving. From 1953 to 1964, they couldn't produce enough food to feed their population. The CIA didn't know? In the 60s, Americans were told more military spending was the only way to stop Soviet world domination. In reality, 1964 started 20 years of the Soviet era of stagnation, not domination. Their economy was falling apart. The CIA didn't know? Yes, in the 1960s, the Soviets poured resources into their space program and their military. But at the expense of everything else. The state-run system was failing. Productivity was low. Their technology was outdated. There's no incentives for innovation. Their scientists and engineers were fleeing. It was called a brain drain. The CIA didn't know? In 1985, Soviet President Gorbachev tried to revitalize the Soviet system. Part of his plan was glasnost, which means openness. He allowed Soviet citizens more freedom to express themselves. What the people expressed was they were miserable. We finally learned the truth. Defending against Soviet aggression wasn't a strategy. It was a sales pitch.
Like the whole time they're telling us, oh, they're about to do this, they're about to do that, man. They're about to have, like, I don't know, laser tactical nuke systems and shit. And the whole time they struggling. They barely hanging on as a country. And we're over here selling it to the American people that, well, you know, they're the top of the line. They got all this technological advance. They're going to send a man to the moon. What do you think they'll do to us next? They might drop an atom bomb from space. Like, yeah. Yeah, I could see where they were low-key trying to sell that. And how we low-key got into it with them.
Throughout the entire Cold War, American military contractors got wealthy and intelligence agencies grew powerful, protecting us from a country that was going bankrupt and whose citizens were sick and starving. When the Berlin Wall came down in 1989, the Soviet Union had already been in ruins for years. The whole world saw it. Somehow, the CIA didn't know. Gladio was funded right up until it was exposed in 1990. Gladio still had armies ready to repel the expansion of the Soviet Union. But by then, there was no Soviet Union. The Baltic states left. Ukraine, Belarus, the Central Asian republics, they were on their way out. The CIA didn't know? In 1991, the USSR was officially dissolved. How did the US respond to its greatest enemy being defeated? It increased its military spending by 12%. Why? The Cold War was over. The Soviets lost. But I guess the CIA didn't know.
Hey, Dan, that military war complex is a it's just something. It's something that we stick to. As soon as they was done through to the point where we couldn't even lie about how effed up they were, we had to move on to the next target.
Operation Gladio was real, but is still controversial and classified. The version I've told today isn't official because nobody knows the whole truth.
The CIA does.
Well, they do, but they won't tell us. The CIA can't confirm or deny its participation in any covert operations.
Bullshit.
I bet.
Now, the CIA claims it was never involved in drug trafficking. They admit Air America existed for intelligence gathering and transporting supplies.
Yeah, supplies of smack.
Smack?
Yeah, you know, skag, horse, brown sugar, China white.
Heroin.
What'd I say?
The CIA said it never happened. In 1996, journalist Gary Webb linked the CIA to Nicaraguan Contras trafficking cocaine into the U.S. to fund rebels.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
Doesn't it?
Yeah, that's
Did the CIA put drugs?
That's the CIA I remember. Yeah, this is good boy CIA. We don't know y'all, but this is the CIA we remember.
Into black community. We don't have any evidence so far that they did it directly. And what we have evidence of is that men working for a CIA-run army did do that.
Yo.
I will get to the bottom of it, and I will let you know the results of what I found.
An official 1998 report investigated Webb's claims and finally put the issue to bed.
The reports acknowledged that the CIA had worked with individuals known to be involved in drug trafficking, but did not find conclusive evidence that the CIA itself had facilitated or condoned these activities.
Who conducted that investigation?
The CIA did.
They investigated themselves?
Yep.
Hey, that'd be so lovely. Imagine you on trial and the prosecutor is you. Can you imagine that? Like, let's say y'all know trafficking or something crazy like that, and you're not only are you the defendant, but you're also the prosecutor. Yes, you run your own investigation. I guarantee you're gonna find yourself innocent, or you're gonna give yourself the weakest argument possible.
You know as well as everyone else that the CIA has been dealing drugs throughout the world and bringing drugs into this country since Vietnam's war. You brought them in here in body bags. You were in the Golden Triangle. So you're going to come in this community and insult us and tell us that you're going to investigate yourself? You got to be crazy.
Hey.
Whistleblowers, including federal agents, said they witnessed CIA involvement.
And we never seen that guy. I promise you.
In moving drugs.
The head of the DEA at the time, Robert Bonner, said that a ton of pure cocaine worth hundreds of millions of dollars had been smuggled into the United States. And he blamed the CIA. Let me understand what you're saying. A ton of cocaine was smuggled into the United States of America.
Whole lot of cocaine.
In cooperation with the CIA? That's exactly what appears to have happened.
Declassified documents show the U.S. government, including CIA, associated with known drug traffickers.
Nazi mobsters, cocaine, heroin, and China people. Oh man, this was a great. This operation was crazy.
They overlook these activities to
stop communism.
Yep.
If you ask the question, did the CIA sell drugs in the black neighborhoods of Los Angeles to finance the Contra-War, the answer will be a categorical no. Now, having said that,
I bet.
And what is true is
so they damn near drugged out an entire generation of black people to fund a paramilitary group that they had operating in different countries, like their own little mini guerrilla armies that they had operating in different countries. They drugged out an entire generation of black people. Oh man, this government right here, you gotta love them.
Policymakers absolutely closed their eyes to the criminal behavior of our allies and supporters in that war. The policymakers ignored their drug dealing, their stealing, and their human rights violations.
That's how Escobar got so far.
The CIA didn't admit to working with organized crime, but investigations and declassified documents show they did. The Vatican and CIA haven't confirmed any financial arrangement. but there's a lot of indirect evidence of Vatican support for anti-communist activities, but no hard proof.
Yeah, that's why they use that bank.
Right. So what's the truth? We don't know.
Yeah, the whole part of using the Vatican Bank is they don't got to report to nobody.
Oh, all I can do is give you my opinion.
Pope?
I know we need a strong military and intelligence agencies.
Yo, hold on. Why can't all banks be like that? Why the Vatican only get that privilege? Why can't every bank only report to, well, the person that owns that bank?
And this episode isn't about communism or the military. This episode is about the lies we've been told for years by the people who swore to protect us. Now, do I believe that the Soviet threat was exaggerated in order to line the pockets of military contractors and expand the power of the CIA? Come on. Of course. We were told this would happen. President Eisenhower warned us about the military-industrial complex. He said if we let the defense companies become too powerful, they'll undermine democracy and influence policy to serve their own financial interests. Ike nailed it. That's what happened. CIA operations like overthrowing...
Yeah, he made that warning on the way out, too. He was like, look, I see something on the horizon, and these military guys are getting locked and loaded to be on BS with every country. And if they can't find a country to BS with, they'll fabricate something, as you've seen with Galileo. The whole point was to just antagonize everybody to turn against communism. Like, the whole point of it.
Governments concerned Eisenhower. He knew intelligence agencies were necessary, but stressed the need for transparency and oversight. Otherwise, the agencies would become a law unto themselves. Ike nailed it again. That's what happened. JFK often asked Eisenhower for advice. Ike told him, don't let the intelligence agencies have too much power. At first, JFK trusted them. But then in 1961, he signed off on the CIA's plan to overthrow Cuba's government. The Bay of Pigs invasion was a disaster. The CIA botched it. It embarrassed America and solidified the relationship between Cuba and the Soviet Union. JFK started to believe that maybe the CIA was doing more harm than good and needed to be reformed or even dismantled.
He was like, why the fuck, man? Why let the people talk about it? Yeah, it did turn out to be a disaster. I think they botched it only because Kennedy ordered it. Because, well, look what they did to him after. Well, if you believe, well, you know, allegedly.
And rebuilt. Their growing power was undermining democracy, just as Eisenhower warned. During the 1960s, there was another serious threat to democracy: organized crime. The mob ran the labor unions and important businesses. They could buy judges, influence politicians. They were powerful.
Yeah, and bro, the mob in the early, like, bro, I think it was really popping in the 20s and 30s, bro. They was unstoppable. I mean, you really couldn't touch these people, especially during alcohol prohibition, and they was making billions off alcohol. Oh my God, you cannot stop the mob. They could low-key do anything, buy anything off. They can, like, bro, they was low-key buying mayors into office. So they just pretty much run the city. It's like, at a certain time, these people are untouchable until the RICO Act. Yes, the mob had about 40, 50, damn near, I think like a 70-year run until the RICO Act came. Then finally we was able to lock all of them up. But, you know, we'll do something on the mob as well, because it was a pretty interesting organization in the beginning, of course.
Enough to change the outcome of elections. Some say the mafia helped JFK get elected, which would be ironic because JFK's victory brought the mafia a big problem.
Yeah, the RICO.
His brother Robert. As Attorney General, RFK prioritized fighting organized crime.
I think what in the field of organized crime, I think it's a very serious situation that's facing the country at the present time.
John F. Kennedy was assassinated on November 22nd, 1963. Robert F. Kennedy, about to run for president, was assassinated 5 years later in 1968. As JFK's Attorney General and confidant, RFK would have continued his brother's policies. He also pledged to reopen the investigation into JFK's murder if he was elected. Now, why reopen an investigation? I thought this was all solved.
Yeah.
A president on a crusade against the CIA, killed. A potential president on a crusade against the mafia, killed. Now, we know the official stories.
And those two did work together in Galileo, so if one got caught up, then it would expose the other.
JFK, Lee Harvey Oswald, a lone gunman, case closed. RFK, Sirhan, lone gunman, case closed. But there are other theories with real evidence that placed the blame not on lone gunmen, but on two powerful organizations. Two organizations with the motive, opportunity, and means: the CIA and the Mafia. Now, whether the CIA and the Mafia were involved in the assassinations, I'm not sure. But I am sure of one thing: they've both mastered organized crime.
Nah, I ain't gonna lie. That is one thing they just like. No, let me run it back here one more time.
JFK often asked Eisenhower for advice. Ike told him, don't let the intelligence agencies have too much power. At first, JFK trusted them. But then in 1961, he signed off on the CIA's plan to overthrow Cuba's government. The Bay of Pigs invasion was a disaster. The CIA botched it. It embarrassed America and solidified the relationship between Cuba and the Soviet Union. JFK started to believe that maybe the CIA was doing more harm than good and needed to be reformed, or even dismantled and rebuilt. Their growing power was undermining democracy, just as Eisenhower warned. During the 1960s, there was another serious threat to democracy: organized crime. The mob ran the labor unions and important businesses. They could buy judges, influence politicians. They were powerful enough to change the outcome of elections. Some say the Mafia helped JFK get elected.
Let's take a pause to give our sponsors a shout out. Looking to help the next generation connect and understand the founding values that led to America's greatness. America's Part 1 by U.S. Comics is a new 360-page graphic novel by top comic artists explaining America's original story, beginning with the landing of English separatists at Palmont Rock. This stunning graphic novel covers the ideals of City on a Hill, the scientific and spiritual awakening in colonial America, as well as iconic moments such as the Boston Massacre, the Boston Tea Party, Paul Revere's famous ride, the early battles of Lexington and Concord, and the Declaration of Independence, as well as the many battles and struggles eventually leading up to the American triumph over the British at Yorktown. The patriotic and visual stunning graphic novel is a guarantee to capture the imagination of the next generation of Americans in your life. You can find America Part 1, the U.S. Constitution, and other great products at uscomics.com. Once again, uscomics.com. Let's get patriotic and read some nice, good comics. Let's go.
Which would be ironic because JFK's victory brought the Mafia a big problem. Brother Robert. As Attorney General, RFK prioritized fighting organized crime.
I think what in the whole of organized crime, I think it's a very serious situation that's facing the country at the present time.
John F. Kennedy was assassinated on November 22nd, 1963. Robert F. Kennedy, about to run for president, was assassinated 5 years later in 1968. As JFK's Attorney General and confidant, RFK would have continued his brother's policies. He also pledged to reopen the investigation into JFK's murder if he was elected. Now, why reopen an investigation? I thought this was all settled.
Yeah.
A president on a crusade against the CIA, killed. A potential president on a crusade against the Mafia, killed. Now, we know the official stories: JFK, Lee Harvey Oswald, a lone gunman, case closed. RFK, Sirhan, lone gunman, case closed. But there are other theories with real evidence that place the blame not
pull up. man. This is Set with Set and Key Media, and we are out. Before they cancel me. All right, no.